Now, from the Pope John Paul II Cultural Center in Washington, D.C., Raymond Arroyo.
Good evening. Great to see you all. Welcome to the World Over Live. Lots to share with you tonight on the national and international front. Father Robert Sirico of the Acton Institute is back to discuss the big stories of the week and the morality of budget cuts. You won't want to miss that. And later, the situation in the Middle East is getting more complex and dangerous following the political upheaval in Egypt. Protests are breaking out all over the Middle East. And what is the human rights situation? And what might the future hold for the minority Coptic Christian community there and Christians throughout the Middle East? Joining us via phone from the capital, they're still voting, to shed some light on all this, as well as his efforts to stop taxpayer funding of abortion, is New Jersey Congressman Chris Smith. And finally, Dr. Andrew Abela is here to tell us about a new degree program, aren't they all degree programs, at the Catholic University of America, teaching students service-oriented ethical business practices. If you'd like to join us, the program number is 1-800-221-9460 in the U.S. and internationally 205-271-2980, or drop us an email, worldover@EWTN.com. Let's get things started. Here's the brief. News from the world over this week. The budget battle is officially underway in Washington. This after the release of President Obama's $3.7 trillion budget proposal for fiscal year 2012. As party leaders argue over what to cut, how much, and how quickly, the U.S. Bishops' Conference weighed in on a few specific areas of concern. Various conference officials sent letters to Congress this week lamenting cuts for international poverty programs, as well as multi-billion-dollar cuts proposed for domestic assistance programs. They do, however, support Republican efforts to roll back the Obama-era expansion of abortion funding. On the international front, the GOP is proposing a return of the Mexico City policy against funding groups that perform or promote abortions abroad. They're also advocating defunding the UN Population Fund, a program that supports China's one-child policy through coerced abortion and involuntary sterilization. More about all of this later in the show. And the head of Egypt's Coptic Catholic Church, Cardinal Antonios Nagwig, praised the success of the country's recent protests and pledged the church's support for democracy. In an interview Tuesday, he also downplayed the influence of extremist groups, such as the Muslim Brotherhood. He expects Egyptians will reject a more Islamic state and instead push for a more democratic one. However, some have voiced concern about whether Egypt's new government will ensure civil and legal equality for Christians. Iraq Archbishop Louis Sacco of Kirkuk says the secular Western world is underestimating the threat of, quote, a reawakening of Islam in the Middle East. In a recent interview, the Archbishop called the region a volcano because of the possible consequences of widespread unrest. He further warned, should Egypt become an Islamic state, it would be a problem for all and have, quote, undeniable negative aftershocks for Christian minorities. He added that some fear Egypt will be destabilized and become a new Iraq. Meanwhile, Russian President Dmitry Medvedev had his first official visit to Vatican City. He met with Pope Benedict XVI on Thursday. Besides the usual photo op and exchange of gifts, the two met privately for about 30 minutes. A Vatican statement indicated that they discussed a broad range of collaborative issues, interreligious dialogue, and finally, a specific discussion about the state of the Middle East. Russia and the Holy See established full-fledged diplomatic relations just over a year ago. No word if an invitation or a possible papal visit to the Russian Federation is in the offing. And a lot of news coming out of Philadelphia after the release of a grand jury investigation of clerical abuse of minors. As a result, 3 priests and a parochial school teacher have been charged with rape and related offenses that allegedly took place during the 1990s. The report detailed the alleged sexual abuse of a 10-year-old altar boy who over time was abused by 2 of the offenders. The 3rd priest was charged with the sexual abuse of another boy. What both cases have in common is that archdiocesan officials allegedly knew of previous inappropriate behavior by at least one of the perpetrators in each case. In turn, Monsignor William Lynn, the vicar of clergy from 1992 to 2004, also received a felony charge of endangering the welfare of a child for his alleged mishandling of suspected priestly abuse. It marks the first time a senior diocesan official has been criminally charged for his handling of abusive priests. And in response to the scathing 124-page grand jury report, Philadelphia Cardinal Archbishop Justin Regali ordered the investigation of 37 priests who the grand jury identified as in active ministry with credible allegations of child sexual abuse. He's further placed 3 others on administrative leave pending review. In his second statement since last week's release of the grand jury report, Cardinal Regali said the report makes clear that for as much as the Archdiocese has done to address child sexual abuse, there is still much to do. He further pledged to do everything possible to rectify the injustices suffered by victims. In spite of the alleged lapses detailed in the report, both the grand jury and Philadelphia District Attorney Seth Williams gave the Archdiocese at least partial credit for corrective steps in the handling of clergy abuse of minors. Meanwhile, New York Archbishop Timothy Dolan blasted famed abuse attorney or infamous abuse attorney Jeffrey Anderson after Anderson suggested that Dolan hid $130 million of funds while head of the Archdiocese of Milwaukee. Archbishop Dolan called the allegations ridiculous and groundless gossip spread by Anderson himself. Last month, the Milwaukee Archdiocese filed for bankruptcy protection in order to settle lawsuits by sexual abuse victims. Although the money in question was at one time being held by the Archdiocese, Dolan said the $130 million actually belonged to a state-protected cemetery trust and individual parishes. The Archdiocese was simply returning the money. Anderson said the funds were moved to prevent abuse victims from being able to hold the Archdiocese fully accountable. Good news and bad news in the latest church census of clergy around the world. The good news: during the past decade, the number of priests has increased by more than 5,600. The bad news is that the number of priests has declined in the West and North America, down by 7% from a decade ago. The clergy in Europe is aging dramatically, and priest deaths outnumber new ordinations 3-to-1 there. In spite of the steep decline in Europe, nearly half of the world's priests are still from the old continent. Making up for the losses, and then some, are new clergy from Africa, Asia, and South America. The final count for 2009, 410,593 priests worldwide. And finally, the Archdiocese of Oklahoma City received their new shepherd. Archbishop Paul Coakley of St. John the Baptist Catholic Church was welcomed by his flock this past weekend. During his homily, Archbishop Coakley challenged the faithful to become part of a new wave of evangelization. Borrowing from the new lexicon of online social media, he reminded the faithful that Jesus doesn't defriend anyone. We wanted to wish Archbishop Coakley all the best. Now, I've got a free offer for all of you, which I'll be sharing next week. But if you'd like early notification, drop me an email at raymond@raymondarroyo.com, and you will be the first to learn about this great offer. Raymond@raymondarroyo.com. Simply put offer in the subject line. You will not want to miss this. It's coming up, my little Lenten gift to you. If you're planning a trip to D.C., why not experience the World Over in person Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern? Drop us an email at worldoverdc@yahoo.com, and we'll reserve a seat for you. Up next, Father Robert Sirico of the Acton Institute returns to discuss the news of the week as Congress slashes the budget. Does Catholic social teaching demand redistribution of wealth? Father Sirico will tell us when the World Over Live continues. Stay right there.
Now, once again, Raymond Arroyo.
My first guest is the president of the Acton Institute for the Study of Religion and Liberty. He's a regular World Over contributor. You all know him. Please welcome back to the program Father Robert Sirico.
Good to be back.
Good to have you back. Now, I want to get into several issues. As you know, at this very hour, this budget debate and battle is playing out just up the road here on Capitol Hill. Tell us about the cries we have been hearing for those who are saying social justice demands a redistribution of wealth, and that should be enshrined in this budget.
Well, in emergency circumstances, social justice makes such a demand. But as a normative process, I don't think so. I doubt it very much. What social justice demands is distribution of wealth. That is, people having access. And normatively, the highest level of a just society is creating a society where people who are vulnerable can participate in economic productivity to support their own families. Mm-hmm. And this is not, even on the part of many religious leaders, is not part of their analysis of the whole moral question. It's really inadequate.
In a lot of the analysis I've been reading this week, you have a number of writers across the Catholic spectrum, not across the Catholic spectrum, mostly on one side of the Catholic spectrum, saying, and quoting, the 2009 encyclical by Pope Benedict, Charity and Truth, where he clearly there says forms of redistribution of wealth are desirable. You would say what to that?
I would say when you read the whole encyclical, the one constant throughout the encyclical with regard to economic matters is that the market is the normative way in which people rise out of poverty. Mm-hmm. Now, in certain circumstances, things have to be done. To help the poor. But to have an analysis of this problem as though the pie was just static in need of being chopped up is an inadequate understanding of how life functions.
You read the bishop's statement this week, the bishop's conference.
Yes.
Several bishops wrote letters to Congress asking them to consider a preferential option for the poor, meaning we have scant federal dollars here that we can play with and use. So those should be first directed toward the poor. What's wrong with that?
Well, the problem is that there's a lot of political manipulation that goes on with regard to budget cutting. Mm-hmm. When you put forward the most vulnerable things, the most incendiary things, I'm a veteran of Proposition 13 in California when they were holding the property tax down. And people said at that time, well, this is going to mean the closing of fire stations and police stations and libraries. This is a response that is being manipulated by the political sector. That's the first thing. The second thing is, unless we see the whole picture, how do the poor get out of poverty? They don't get out of poverty normally by charity. They get out of poverty by having access to wealth production, that is jobs. And when you repress the capacity of the market to stimulate, to create jobs by overregulation, by overtaxation, you're not acting on behalf of the poor. You'll end up having more poor people.
Mm-hmm. If I want you to be part of this program, the number 1-800-221-9460, or internationally, 205. Oh, my prompter just rolled. They love to do that when I'm in the middle of a read. They roll it. 205-271-2980, or drop us an email, worldover@EWTN.com. See, I can do it without the prompter.
You need to get the president's prompters, because those work nicely.
Those work. Yeah, he has two. See, he's got a backup prompter.
Yeah,
that's
right
what
there,
I need,
that's what you
not
need.
just the one. Let's talk for a moment about those who say, how moral is it to cut taxes for the wealthy while cutting these programs that poor people are reliant upon?
You know, that sounds so clear and so clear-cut.
Yes.
But let's remember that the majority of the wealth of the wealthiest people is not invested in their mink coats and their automobiles. It's invested in business. So it goes back to the point I just made, that if you are cutting taxes to enable business to stimulate, to produce jobs, to produce goods and services at less and less price, who does this benefit? It benefits the workers and it benefits the consumers. It benefits the poor.
Well, isn't there another argument to be made here that I haven't heard articulated? What about the morality of burdening the working man with 5 kids who are working 2 jobs with more taxes and more compulsion to spend his money in ways that he'd rather not have it spent?
No, this is exactly a part of the problem, that people can't accumulate enough wealth. There are disincentives to save. And what we haven't yet talked about, but I predict that in 6 months we'll be talking about it, in a year we'll be talking about it, is the whole inflationary pressures, which dissolves the money that's in your pocket. And who does that disproportionately impact first and foremost? Those on fixed incomes. So, you know, this budget is not touching entitlements. Even this budget right now is allocated toward, of the, what did you say, it was $3.73 trillion.
Right. That's
$2.14 trillion is going to entitlement programs in this budget.
And we have to tell people there are 2 things being debated. This week, or right now, they're only considering the budget for this fiscal year, which we've already burned several months of. This only this will go to the 2011 budget, which only goes through October, at which point the next budget has to kick in. That debate has yet to happen. But for the moment, both the president and the Republicans haven't touched the entitlements, though they're claiming they have to. We'll see. But my guess is the first person to put an entitlement cut on the table will be the first person demonized, which is why nobody's saying anything.
Right, and this is the great fear. Is it going to be Social Security? Is it going to be Medicare, Medicaid? These are the big things, and including the military.
But you can't reduce the deficit, and you can't get a handle on the spending unless you get into entitlements. This is the largest part of the federal budget.
That's absolutely true. You know,
and defense. Should defense be cut?
Yeah, I'm sure it's a government bureaucracy. I'm sure there are things that can be shrunk in defense. You know, Father, is it Larry Schneider? Who is the president of Catholic Charities USA. Now, I've had my disagreements with various people over there over the years, but he made a very sensible statement. He said, why don't we prioritize reducing and economizing the bureaucracies first and foremost? And I think this is one way in which you can shrink the deficit. You know, when we look at this morally, if we had a neighbor across the street, because people get lost in all these numbers, trillions, you know, talking about large numbers. We look at a person across the street living beyond their means and then coming over and asking to borrow money from you. You begin to wonder about their moral frame of reference. And isn't this the case with our nation as well? The proposed budget will be for next year will be over 100% of the GDP. Now, there's a moral question of what kind of legacy is left to the next generation. Who is going to pay that?
I want to shift gears for a moment and talk about social networking, which is such a part of our world now. I mean, I use Facebook like everybody else does. Archbishop Vincent Nicholas of Westminster in the UK and a Protestant theologian, both this week, made the argument that perhaps this social networking is eroding the practice of faith, particularly in the young, because their theory is church is a social moment. It is a chance for you to connect in an intimate way with your fellow parishioners and fellow believers. And that if you have access to them via the computer, you don't need to go to church. Do you think there's credibility in that argument?
No, every time we see something wrong, we blame it on technology. And this is not a new thing either. I'm sure that there were moral denunciations of the automobile when it was invented. No, first of all, I don't think that church is all about social. I think it's mainly about God. Secondarily, you could make the same kind of observations and cautions about people who are too bookish, that they withdraw from society. And in point of fact, in a way that books aren't, the social media does connect people with society. There are all kinds of movements. I'm invited on my Facebook page to be part of this movement and part of that movement, and people are having discussions about various things, or announcing that there's going to be a prayer meeting or there's going to be a Right to Life rally. So I think there's a lot. We cannot be troglodytes. You know, I think it's very dangerous if we are so antiquated and not. What we need to do is get ahead of it and direct it and lead it.
Well, their point is that, I think Archbishop Nicholas's point is that this is eroding people's basic human skills, their ability to read faces and take audio cues, because everything is in little bites on Facebook or Twitter. And they consider this authentic friendship, and it's really not.
No. It may or may not be. It depends on who you're communicating with.
Well, it's clearly not, Father. I mean, it's a nice way to communicate.
But it may be
friendship.
When you and I are on Facebook or emailing each other, we're augmenting our friendship, right?
Yeah, but that assumes we have a friendship in the first place.
Yes, and there's a lot of people who are doing exactly that.
But we're communicating a lot more now face-to-face than we would via this.
It's another mode of communication. I'm not saying that this should substitute for real interpersonal communication. I'm just saying let's not denounce it as though it was something new. It's not something new.
Yeah, and one of our correspondents here, Claudia, just actually dropped something on my Facebook page where she said, I totally disagree. Facebook has brought together people of faith, especially Catholics. It allows us to share news, messages, inspirations, pro-life news, prayer requests more easily. She considers it good, and I can see the advantage of that.
It's the old lesson of balance. We have to have a balance in our lives.
What about, there was a report that Facebook and Twitter, particularly Facebook, actually adds to your anxiety and stress because you are accepting a friendship or denying it, or having a friendship accepted or denied in this social media world.
Well, I suppose that's a new social convention. You know, that is a new thing we're just going to have to adapt to. I mean, what's the bottom line here? Are we going to ignore this? Are we going to say it is a sin, 10 Hail Marys and 2 Our Fathers and 3 emails for your penance? No, we have to get ahead of this. We have to understand it's going to present challenges to us, like air travel has presented challenges to us, and all the rest of it.
Let's move on to another technological story we've been hearing in the last few weeks. I don't know why this is so confusing to people, but it is. There is a confession app that has been created for the Apple products. Yeah. Now, all this is the old confession pamphlet where you had an examination of conscience. Right. But people have been up in arms about this. My email is crazy.
No, but most people don't understand what it is. I mean, the Vatican press spokesperson, Father Lombardi, had to say, this is not confession. You're not going on your iPhone to confession. You can't even do it over the telephone.
Right.
By the way, it has to be this personal.
You still have to go face to face. It's an examination of conscience.
I came to Mass the other night and was there a little bit early, and I noticed a young man, very devout young man, going to each of the stations of the cross, and I noticed that he had in his hand his BlackBerry or iPhone, and at first I thought, well, that's odd that you... And then I realized he was reading the stations from his device. And a priest I live with says his breviary at times. I mean, we say it in community and with books, but he says his breviary. And so I said to him, Father, do you when you're done with your breviary on your iPhone, do you just kind of do that? He joked to me. But it's convenient because he has it with him all the time, and so you don't have to look for your breviary. I have to leave 2 or 3 breviaries around so that at the time of the day it's there and I don't have to go running looking for it.
Now, one thing I have to complain about, I actually, my producer Chris downloaded this app, and we were playing with it, looking at it earlier. It takes you through an examination of conscience, and you check the questions that you are sinful. If you're sinful in a certain area, did you backtalk your parents or did you whatever? And if you click on it, after the whole examination, it does an inventory and it lists your sins, literally called sins. Here's my problem. I don't want anybody hacking into this thing after I'm finished poking around and confessing to the device.
You are much more of a techie than I am. You know, I mean,
yeah,
when
but
it
people
comes to
haven't even examined this. This is a sin hit list. I don't want people hacking into that.
I hear confessions several times every week.
Yeah, but I don't want my kid hearing my confession, and he's better at the thing than I am.
My point is this. Your kid will come in, and I haven't heard your kid's confession, and I'll hear behind the screen this, and I realize they have brought their lists. Now, sister, when I was taught to go to, she said, don't write down your sins for precisely this reason. So this is a problem. It is a problem. You have to remember to hit delete.
A flaw in the app.
You know.
Well, I was wondering,
when
Chris
I was looking
brought it
at
over to me, you have to put a password in. Well, if you have to put a password in, clearly somebody can hack through that thing.
Well, Chris showed me it, and I was pressing it, and if it's his password, so I won't get blamed. But I was hitting all of the sins to see what the advice they were giving you. So Chris may be in trouble.
Let's hope he doesn't get hacked. It's not his fault. Let's move on. We had Lila Rose on the show a few weeks ago. Lila is the founder of this live action group. They've been doing these sting operations at Planned Parenthood clinics around the country. You have an actor passing himself off as a pimp, a girl passing herself off as a prostitute. They go in and ask for certain services for minors, girls who are minors, and you have staff at these various clinics, if you believe what you're seeing in the videos, complying with their requests and therefore aiding and abetting the corruption of minors here. Many have raised the issue in recent days, a lot of Catholics, a lot of people in the pro-life community, that this is lying and it cannot be justified, this whole sting operation, because these really aren't pimps or prostitutes. Your thoughts on this?
Well, you know, I've read through a number of these articles, and I have to say that going into it, I didn't think it was a big issue. But as I read and realized, this is a gray area. I mean, when you really get down to it, it is a gray area. Now, I'm not talking about this particular effort because I haven't seen the videos on this. I'm sorry, I didn't see your program last week.
For shame. What are you doing on your Thursday?
I'm going to go to confession. I'm going to go to confession.
That's got to be a new app category.
Yes.
Go ahead.
But the Catechism says that a lie consists of speaking a falsehood with the intention of deceiving. Now, as you get into this, you think, well, is acting lying? Is telling your wife that she doesn't look heavy in a polka dot dress? Is lying feints in sports or in war tactics when you fake somebody out to get them to go here and go there? In boxing, that's done on a regular basis. Is it protecting the innocent? Time and time again, we say, can I lie to a Nazi if they're coming to the Jews in my basement? My reaction to it is it's a slippery slope. We need to be talking about it. In fact, I'm very happy that the pro-life community takes morality this seriously, because on the other side of the debate, for the most part, they're not going to have the level of serious conversation that pro-lifers are having about this.
Well,
we have to be very careful that we don't do two things. And people defending this are using a mode of moral argument that is very dangerous. One is proportionalism, that well, this is so big that it's justified because it's so evil. And the second is the means justifies the ends. If we follow those trajectories of moral argumentation, we're in real trouble.
I want to come back to this because I have much more to talk about, and our email is coming in. And you're welcome to send your questions in worldover@EWTN.com. The number's on the television there. I want to go to our guest joining us by phone. I'm sorry he's not here in person. On the phone is the leader of the Pro-Life Caucus in the House of Representatives and a member of the Foreign Relations Committee for nearly 30 years. He's championed human rights for those born and unborn. He joins us tonight to talk about the continued unrest in the Middle East and the budget battle going on Capitol Hill as we speak. Joining us is Congressman Chris Smith of New Jersey. Thanks for being here, Congressman.
Raymond, thank you so very much, and I always appreciate your show.
I'm just sorry you're not here on set. I want to ask you a quick question. Run down what happened this week. You were, I know, on the very forefront of this effort to reinstate the Mexico City policy.
Yes.
Briefly, has it been reinstated?
Yes,
is it part of this new budget?
It's part of the continuing resolution. Obviously, we have to get it through the Senate. But I was here literally to almost 3 o'clock in the morning waiting to fend off a challenge from the Democrat side to take away the language that's in the bill. And Mexico City is so important because it it limits funding to organizations, foreign non-governmental organizations, that do not promote or perform abortions overseas. And unfortunately, on day 2, Barack Obama reversed that Bush-Reagan policy going way back, and now we're funding these groups, and they are unleashed all over the world. So it's a very, very major issue. We also won on defunding the UN Population Fund. Again, we still have to fight with the Senate, and to put that at 0 because of their participation in co-management of the forced abortion policy in the People's Republic of China, which has made brothers and sisters illegal. And forced abortion is absolutely commonplace.
Congressman Smith, what about Title X? This is the provision that funds Planned Parenthood.
Yes, Title X, we also had language in the bill that goes to 0 on Title X. Title X, people say there's no money in the budget, the other side for family planning. Where everyone comes down on family planning, we know what Catholic teaching certainly is on that. Under Medicaid, $1.4 billion, and that's not small amounts of money, is spent on family planning. What the Title X program does is sets up money to organizations like Planned Parenthood and others, who then reach out not just to poorer people, but to college students. And the bottom line is, Planned Parenthood alone does 332,000 abortions in 2009. The number keeps going up as they build more clinics. And what they do is double hat the family planning clinic with the abortion clinic, and then they go into the grisly business of destroying babies and wounding mothers on our dime.
So that's been stripped out then of this budget.
Again, we have a major fight looming with the United States Senate, but the Republicans, without any doubt, are stepping up to the plate and saying enough of this culture of death, whether it be domestic or foreign policy. In a minute or two, we will offer an amendment. It'll be Mike Pence from Indiana to totally defund Planned Parenthood. Again, the group that gets so much of our taxpayer dollars.
$317 million a year.
Exactly, and they get it from a lot of sources. About a third of their billion-dollar budget comes from public funding at the local, state, and federal level. And they are on a binge to build more abortion mills. And when I speak on the floor momentarily on it, I'm going to speak from Abby Johnson's book, where she describes when she saw a ultrasound abortion in the process, and how even though she ran the abortion clinic, when she saw that little baby crumple, was shocked and dismayed and walked out, and of course now is a strong pro-lifer.
Congressman Smith, before our time runs out, it's curious, and I was watching this debate very closely last night, and I was up in the wee hours watching C-SPAN.
Sure. And you saw me speaking.
I did see you speaking, and the thing that struck me was we were expecting, and I had gotten word that there would be pro-choice amendments to push back on your language.
Yeah,
and that the Democrats would.
They filed them.
What
Crowley
happened?
Filed one from New York, and Callum Maloney filed another. They're very pro-abortion members of the House, and they didn't offer them to our shock.
So why not?
Say, Raymond, really
What's the strategy here?
Raymond,
What's the strategy?
This is something very important, if I could just bring it up. The Irish people next week, as you probably know, will be voting for members of their parliament, and of course the Prime Minister will come out of that. A very dangerous predicament and development has occurred where Ian Gilmore, who's from the Labour Party, has announced that the Labour Party will push to liberalize abortion in Ireland. And that they will, if they form a government with with another party, this will become a plank that they try to get through. And they're reacting to a European Court of Human Rights finding that actually was in Ireland's favor, that they have a right to decide their own laws relevant to the life of the unborn child. And frankly, there have been 3 referendums. I was there for one in the early 1980s, and the people voted to protect the unborn child. So, for our friends in Ireland and everyone who cares about that marvelously pro-life country, pray and work to ensure that the Labour Party and those TDs that are running or candidates for the Dáil, their parliament, are pro-life and to take the pledge. Our good friend and yours, Dana Scalin, has actually begun this, what they call the electoral pledge, asking individuals and parties to pledge, as they did in Northern Ireland, to stand up to the pressure from the UK.
Congressman, before we run out of time, I just want to follow up on my earlier question as well. Though thanks for the important information.
Spread that message if you would, Raymond.
Why didn't the Democrats offer those amendments? And what do you think the strategy is to simply allow this Republican language, your language, in the bill? Is it that they think it'll be shot down in the Senate?
Well, they hope that will happen. But frankly, I have learned over the years that you challenge and you never not challenge. You always. You make it difficult. You do everything you can to protect life, even when you're in a losing cause. We believe we have the votes, and we'll show that tonight, hopefully, on the Pence Amendment that will be offered on the Planned Parenthood. But they probably think or thought that a very lopsided vote in favor of life would disadvantage them going forward. But they did file the amendments, so they certainly had some intent on offering them. But frankly, we will fight this and the abortion president, Barack Obama, in an unyielding fashion, because the culture of death now, if you look at some of the media out there from Planned Parenthood and others, and the tripe that they are spreading, I've never seen it so vicious in all of my life. And I've been in the pro-life movement 38 years, Congress for 31. Now is our time for the church, for men and women of goodwill, to rally around life. We want a national debate on abortion, because when people see it, just like Abby Johnson, when she saw it, they will be repulsed by the ugliness and the violence of abortion against babies and their mothers.
Final question, Congressman Smith. I'm going to have you back to talk about the situation in the Middle East, which I really wanted to get to, because I know you've been on the forefront of the human rights struggle there.
I've been in Cairo and Noble Bark.
And jailed in Cairo, as I recall, right? Arrested?
Just taken aside at the Cairo Population Conference because of the Clinton administration's denunciation.
I remember. Let's, the final question. All spending bills have to originate in the House. So my question is, if this gets to the Senate and is either stalled there or the president vetoes it, what do? This government's going to then shut down on March 4th, yes?
Oh, sure. Well, there would have to be another CR, and frankly,
continuing resolution
is committed to these policies, and we will do everything we can at every step of the way to ensure that we hold harmless the precious lives of children and the fundamental morality of preserving life across the continuum of life. So we're going to be dogged. It's going to be a rough sled. The other side is very determined, and we never should underestimate, the tenacity that they exhibit. I think it's obsession. I wonder why they are so enamored of and committed to dismembering and chemically poisoning unborn children, but they are. That said, we have to fight with the benign weapons of love, compassion, prayer, and hard work.
Congressman Chris Smith, thanks so much for joining us, and we will catch up with you perhaps next week.
Thank you. And Ray, please pass the word about Ireland.
You just did.
Okay.
Thank you, Congressman. Father Robert Sirico, I want to wrap up and
great man.
Give me your thoughts on all of this. We were just talking about this question of, was live action Lila Rose responsible, or is engaging in lying crossing a moral line there? When you look at what has happened as a result, largely as a result of those videos, Chris Christie defunding Planned Parenthood in New Jersey, and this national movement.
That was before.
No, I think that was subsequent.
Oh, was it?
That was subsequent to the first release. She's been doing this for years.
No, I know
she has. Doing these sting operations at Planned Parenthood clinics.
My heart is with her. You know that. I mean,
so what are your thoughts?
It's the narrow question of a theological issue about lying, and I think it's unclear under what circumstances, if any, because lying is an intrinsic evil, because it's an offense against the truth of God, and abortion is a lie. As the congressman has just said, that if people see it for what it is, they're going to recoil at it. And so the father of lies can have no part in what we do. Having said that, there are circumstances under which people do not deserve the truth to be given to them, in the sense that you don't have to respond to them. Are there Jews in my basement? That kind of thing. I think
that's what I mean. I understand people.
Rahab the harlot in the Old Testament lied to the forces when the spies came from Israel. By the way, spying itself is a form of lying. All kinds of undercover operations are a form of lying.
When the FBI does a sting operation against some of these child abusers, I'm thrilled that they're arrested before they actually get their hands on a child.
But the thing we have to be very careful not to do is to say because of the enormity of evil, we somehow are exempted from our moral obligation to tell the truth. Because the moment we do that, we have conceded the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And that, I think that's the caution that people like Robbie George and others are trying to bring to this debate.
Very good. Father, one more thing I want to touch on. There was a report that came out this week from CARA. This is the group that tracks the Center for Applied Research in the Apostolate. They track religious organizations and the growth or contraction, as the case may be, in religious communities. What they discovered and what their research has been turning over for years now is the more traditional groups, the ones that pray the rosary, have Eucharistic adoration, are drawing young adherents. Who'd have thunk that?
Who'd have thought that a greater focus on Jesus Christ, a greater fidelity of his church, a clear obedience to the magisterium would draw vocations? You know, what is that line from... was it Casablanca, you remember, where gambling in our casino?
Yeah, exactly,
you know? What? Here you're winning, sir.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the elephant in the room, as one priest, Monsignor Charles Pope, appropriately enough, noted. The elephant in the room is that traditional vocations vocations are engendered by traditional practice. And the alarming thing is that many of our convents have cemeteries that are growing faster than their novitiates. Some of them are receiving no vocations whatsoever. And when you look at the style of life of the various communities, the ones that are growing now in any market, you would immediately imitate it. Why isn't this happening in the church? Not to say that the church is a market, but just the common sense of knowing what works and what doesn't work.
Right. Why wouldn't you replicate
And nobody's
what
talking
works?
about this. Just replicate.
I mean, look at this. These are young new sisters and brothers who just came to the community. 74% participated in parish retreats. 65% prayed the rosary frequently. 64% regularly practiced Eucharistic adoration. I mean, it's apparent these acts, the habit, the
habit was
example.
very, very important to a lot of them. I remember one, I was interviewing a sister, kind of from a progressive order, and I said, what about the habit in your community? She said, it's optional. I said, what if a woman came in and wanted to wear the habit? She said, well, we would discern that with her. I said, okay, so at the end of the discernment, what would happen? She said, well, we would think that she's really called somewhere else. I said, well, sister, then it's not optional, is it? You know, and that convent, if you went into that convent today, it's like going into a nursing home.
I want to read you a quick email from one of our viewers. Don't we find the church today in an untenable situation of accepting things like programs that are anti-family and anti-life because we have abdicated our moral authority by expecting the government to do charity and do the education for our kids? These are things that the church has always done, yet today we expect the secular authorities to do it. That's Phil from Litchfield, Minnesota.
Not only have we done it, but it's the source of our own spiritual nourishment that we do it. It's what engenders vocations. Because when we encounter the poor, we encounter Jesus in a distressing disguise, as Mother Teresa once said.
Very good. Father Robert Sirico,
good
always
being
a pleasure.
with you.
Thanks for being back. For more on Father Robert and the work of the Acton Institute, visit acton.org, ACTON.org. After the break, Dr. Andrew Abela from Catholic University is here. He'll talk about an innovative new business program that's shaping a brand new type of entrepreneur. We'll tell you all about it when the World of Her Life continues. Stay right there.
Now, once again, Raymond Arroyo.
With the worldwide economy in a tailspin, business ethics, or the lack thereof, have been a hot topic of conversation. My last guest is the chairman of the Department of Business and Economics at the Catholic University of America, our neighbors right here in D.C. He's here to tell us about a new business degree being offered at COA that seeks to give students a solid foundation in sound business practices based on Catholic teaching. Please welcome Dr. Andrew Abela and his student, Meredith, give me your last name, Kirch. Thank you so much for being with us.
Pleasure.
Andrew, I want to start with you. You founded this program. Why? What was lacking out there in the educational marketplace that you felt you needed a program that focused on Catholic teaching? And it's not an ethics class, though.
No. Actually, the original inspiration was from my wife, who is a graduate of Thomas Aquinas College. And we're looking at all the wonderful people who come out of these Catholic liberal arts programs at Catholic U and various other places, and thinking they often get married, want to start a family, need a good job. So we needed something to bridge them into the business world. So our program is a one-year business degree that you take immediately after undergrad, with a strong focus on preparing you for getting a really good job out of that. Because you get these great thinking skills and communication skills out of a liberal arts program. All you need are some of the tools, the language of business, and then you can just...
Okay, what distinguishes this program from other graduate-level business courses?
Three things. One is it's much more concentrated. So it's a one-year program, take it straight after undergrad. A typical MBA, you need to go 2 or 3 years after, you know. The second thing is solidly focused on Catholic social teaching. So Catholic social teaching is infused throughout the whole program, in every course that we teach. And then the third is an obsessive focus on orienting the students to job search. So from the very beginning, we're networking with them, connecting them. We have an advisory board of about 14 at this point, local and national CEOs, strong Catholics, all of them. Every one of them is a mentor to a student in the program. So every student in the program gets one-on-one mentoring from a Catholic CEO.
So, some would say, watching, I'm sure, this runs counter to the nature of business. Business is about competition, beating the competition, meeting those bottom lines, and making a profit.
But the last bit is right, but the rest of it is a disordered understanding of business. Business is all about serving people, serving customers, right? Employing people. These are good things, and you do that well, and you have a successful business. And so that's what we're trying to get the students to see. Is you don't have to be a wimp, if you will, to be a good Catholic in business, right? And that's actually why we had a joint class where we brought our advisory board members in and the students as well, debating together, so that the students could see from the advisory board members that you can be tough and you can be aggressive, but you can be fair and just and very successful. And all of those things actually do go together, and that's kind of what our program is all about.
Meredith, why did you seek out this program, and what do you hope to gain from it when it's all over?
I was ready to earn my master's degree, and I knew I wanted to earn a degree in business, but having a liberal arts background, I didn't know where to start. So I did some research, found this program, and what appealed to me was the focus on Catholic social teaching and business ethics. And what I have been gaining is a very strong understanding of how business works and very practical skills that are applicable and can be used in a number of different career paths.
So this is a case method approach. What does that mean? It's not all theory.
Right. It's very applied. So we take actual real case studies and the students debate them and learn kind of what would you do in that situation. That, and also a lot of techniques and tools and so on. Meredith mentioned business ethics, and you mentioned that before. Another distinctive point about our program is we don't actually have a class in business ethics, which is highly unusual. But the reason for that is, if you do that, what I have seen is they go to the business ethics class and they think about ethics. Then they go to the finance class and they think, okay, I'm done with the ethics. Now I focus on finance. When they leave, you can figure out what they focus on.
They start bifurcating and separating.
And they don't think about the ethics. Exactly. So this way we integrate the ethics in every program. And so you leave behind that sort of separation and say, no, this is something we talk about in every class.
What are the basic principles of this curriculum?
So there are three. The three core principles of Catholic social teaching. There's solidarity, caring for others; subsidiarity, which is making sure that decisions are taken at the lowest practicable level, whether it be individual business or...
That's one that a lot of people could listen to. Subsidiarity.
Very important, right? And then human dignity, of course, right?
Yeah, we don't hear enough about subsidiarity.
We need to hear a lot more. It's a very powerful... I love the definition. It basically says it's a mortal sin to take away somebody's a decision that is justly somebody's and elevate it to a higher level, be it government or whatever.
Meredith, what has been your impression of being party to this type of approach? I mean, I like the idea that you're interacting with these CEOs who have already made it. They're proven leaders in their field.
Absolutely. The advisory board has been such a strong part of the program, because I have relationships with people in the business world who are also focused on ethical leadership, which is the crux of this program.
Mm-hmm. And what do you hope to do with this degree?
Actually, I have great news. Today I accepted a position with a consulting firm in Washington, D.C.
Fantastic. So you'll spread the salt around then throughout the town. This isn't the first year of this.
This is the first year. We just started last September. This is our first year.
And what type of student are you looking for?
The ideal student is somebody coming out of a Catholic liberal arts program. We take people from others. We have somebody from UVA and so on. So obviously we'll consider a good, solid liberal arts program who is willing to work hard. It's hard work, right?
Absolutely.
We put a lot of effort because we're cramming a lot into that 1 year. But with an interest in business or some other administration. So we have some people interested in not-for-profit or government. But what we're doing is we're taking all the good learning from liberal arts and then kind of translating that into a business environment.
And what has been the reaction?
Very, very strongly positive, both among the candidates, among the potential employers, the advisory board, but even among the faculty. We have a really unique mix of full-time faculty and then adjuncts who bring a wonderful mix of experience. Several hundred years, I think we added up in terms of
You've actually done the statistical.
We added it up. Yep. Our program director, Stu Mackay, who's here in the audience, is a 30-year veteran of ExxonMobil. He was their global brand manager. Now is running as a program director for the MSBA.
Fantastic.
So, yeah.
No, I like that practical approach. We don't get enough of that in academia. So thank you so much for sharing
Real pleasure.
the program
Thanks for having
with us.
us.
Meredith Kirsch, thank you for being here as well. Andrew Abela. And for more information on the Masters of Science in Business Analysis at the Catholic University of America, the program we've been talking about, go to msba.cua.edu. msba.cua.edu. Thanks again. Well, that's all the time we have. Now, over the last few weeks, we've received a lot of calls and emails from our Canadian viewers. They're concerned about the decision by one of our affiliates, Bell TV, to drop EWTN from their lineup later this month. Now, we've asked them to reconsider, but have been told that the decision is final. So what can you do? If you're a Bell TV subscriber, you can call them at 1-888-759-3474. The number's on your screen. 888-759-3474. Voice your opinion by contacting them directly. Tell them how you really feel. And if you want to share your experience or you want to get involved locally, contact our EWTN Canadian Regional Manager, Brady Grant. You can reach him at 902-892-9664 or bgrant@ewtn.com. Until next week, you can find updates and the occasional commentary by following me on Facebook or Twitter. And the best way to do that, just go to RaymondArroyo.com and you can click right through. You'll see the little bugs there. And if you sign up for my e-blast at RaymondArroyo.com or email me at Raymond@RaymondArroyo.com, you will be the first to know about a special free offer I'll announce next week for all of you. Until then, we'll be scouting the world over for all that is seen and unseen. On behalf of the staff and crew of EWTN News, I'm Raymond Arroyo. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye now.